When I was at the 1984 Olympics, Frank Anderson from Sweden was the three-time world champion and picked to win the Olympics in my weight class in 1984. He was the favorite by far. The King of Sweden was there to watch him win his medal. Now Frank had a movie star status in Sweden. Him and, I don't know if you guys remember the tennis player Bjorn Borg, but those two guys were like the top athletes in Sweden at the time. And Frank was always in the tabloids dating this movie star or that beautiful movie star. In fact, just I think 2, 3, 4 years ago, I've still got very good friends in Sweden. Frank Anderson, I think he took second, if I'm not mistaken, to the Dancing with the Stars in Sweden, Sweden's version. So Frank, a little bit more about Frank, very flamboyant guy. He had this wonderful back supplé that you saw Garrett Lowney do on the Russian Gogashvili. This was his move, and this back in the day was just starting when the back supplé started to become real popular. He destroyed his first 3 opponents, no problem, 12-pointed all of them with this back supplé, his straight lift, I should say. And so I go back to the Olympic Village. I wrestled a couple matches. My first 2 matches I won, and Frank was my 3rd match of the Olympics. And I was wrestling him the 2nd day in the morning. So I go back to the Olympic Village after my first 2 victories, and I walk into the village, and there was the LA Times sitting out on the, I don't know, stand or whatever as you walked in. I grabbed the LA Times. I look in the sports section, and who's on the front page of the LA Times sports section? Frank Anderson, who I'm wrestling the next morning. I open it up, I look at it, and Frank is already counting the gold. His quote was, you know, I beat the Greek. I think I beat the toughest guy in the weight class. All I see is gold now. And he talked about how he was going to hang that gold medal around his racehorse's neck back in Sweden when he got back to Sweden, or how he was going to hang it from the rearview mirror of his Porsche. And of course, I'm reading this, you know, thinking I'm wrestling him the next day, and obviously I'm a bit nervous. Go back, this is the biggest match of my career, right? Frank Anderson. Now, Frank and I have been in a lot of tournaments together through the years, but we just so happened never wrestled each other. He's usually winning them. I was usually coming in underneath him somewhere. But we just, by chance, never wrestled each other. So I go back to my room, lay in bed, and as I laid there, what do you think I thought about? Now, don't look up on the screen and tell me. What do you think I was thinking about? Anybody? Biggest match of my life. Not getting thrown by his straight lift. I was. But here's what I was focused on. I was focused on, and I deliberately focused on, only the things that I knew I could control. Like, I knew I could control the pace of the match. So I was going to go out, and I laid there in bed and I visualized this, of course, how I was going to go out fast. Oh, and I knew I could control the physicalness of the match. And I was going to be physical, which again, that was kind of my forte. So it fit right in my forte. Frank was a very powerful wrestler, but not as, I would say, not as physical as I was. So that's what I focused on. I was going to go out there and be physical and fast. And I thought about, I was going to make this an exciting crowd for the fans. Win, lose, or draw, I'm not sure. You can't always control the wins. But I knew I could control these things, and in worst case scenario, I was going to make it a great, exciting match for the crowd, and I was going to go after him 100%. And of course, I visualized defending his straight lift, because he was really good at that. So I saw myself defending this way, and he was going to step this way, defending that way. And as I thought about that, I drifted off and fell asleep.